Hello, everyone. My name is Eleftheria. Nice to meet you all. And my talk is all about UX and UI. I think that so far we had a lot of stuff about coding. Sure, we love that. But equally important, it is UX and UI. We're going to talk a lot about that, so let's get started. The things that we are about to see, it's what is UX, what is UI, how are those things different, what are the similarities, and then we will continue with the heuristics, what are they and how we can leverage them as developers. We will continue with the 10 usability heuristics, which is actually 10 practical rules that we can go in. And then, if we have time, we will continue with some tips about UX and some tips about UI. I forgot to say that I am a community manager at Hashnote, but I used to be a developer and also a little bit of UX researcher and UI designer. So I have done a mixture of things, but I hope that through my experience, I will be able to help you. Because I guess that a lot of you are working maybe in big companies and you have like some awesome designers and researchers with you, but from the other hand, maybe you have side projects and the UI always needs some job, or I don't know, maybe you have a startup and you don't have the money for a designer, but you want to make your product better. So we will see some practical tips on how we can achieve that. These rules are not coming by me, but from some pioneers in UX and UI. So let's get started. First of all, UX versus UI. Although there is a ocean of content out there, you can find a lot of information about UX. UX stands for user experience. And there is a lot of information about UI. UI stands for user interface. What we are going to do differently here in this session is that we are going to demystify these two terms from the angle of the user, so how a user sees those things, and how a designer/developer sees those things. Okay, let's start with the user's perspective and how the users sees and understand user interface. So for user interface, the user is what he interacts with in a product, what he taps on, what he clicks on, and the experience is localized externally, and yeah, you can pretty much see everything when we're talking about user interface. But when we're talking about UX, user experience, it's how a user interacts with a product, how he feels when he uses that product. Is he smiling? Is he, I don't know, he feels sad? Is he nervous or anything else? This is user experience. Now, let's see also those terms from the designer's perspective or the developer's perspective. And this is a bit more complicated. So I will start with an analogy. As you can see here, UI is like the tip of the icicle, is usually what we see. But it's not only that. In order to be in the stage of see something, first we have to make some research, we have to think about something, we have to collaborate with other people. And so the other part of the icicle that you can see, this is the UX. So in other terms, maybe the UI is what you see, but the UX is what you see alongside with what you don't see and what holds everything together. Okay, so let's start getting into the details. What is really UX all about? So UX, it can be both subjective and objective. It's not only one thing, and it's a term that it's always expanding. Maybe today it means something, but maybe in 10 years it will be something else. Let's start and let's stay focused on the thing that it can be subjective. This goes that, does the user connect emotionally Is he cracking a smile? Are the icons and illustrations understandably enough? Is the user pleasantly surprised by animations and other similar effects? And from the other hand, it can also be objective. Does the user actually accomplish what he or she wants to do? Is the speed good enough? Is the response good enough? And stuff like that. What is more enjoyable, to have a gesture, a sweeping effect, or a tap effect, something that will slide, or something else? All these things are subjective, and they definitely belong to the UX, not to the UI. I will give you also an example. This example is quite easy to follow, and many of you probably have similar experience. Try to think a little bit, what do you prefer? And let's see that example of a ride-sharing app. Would you prefer an app that doesn't show your driver in real time, doesn't show the cost of your ride, doesn't let you save your favorite places? Or would you prefer another app that maybe it has the same UI, maybe the user interface is exactly the same, but this time it lets you to save your favorite places, it lets you to, I don't know, to see everything in real life, and all the other stuff that you usually can do. Okay, I'm pretty sure that you know which one would you choose. But from the other hand, when we have our product, sometimes we use it so much that we know the product by heart and we think that everything is easy. But try to give it to another person and ask him or her, could you please do this for me on my app that I created? Will this person do everything as quickly as you do them? Will that person be able to understand the language that you're using? And ask them even to make similar actions. Will it be easier for them? Will they do it faster? Is there any other problem? You really have to focus on your users, but this is something that we will talk in a bit as well. Okay, moving on to why UX is important. And I hope, again, that you have started realizing why it's so important. But let's make a quick recap. It is important because at its core, it's putting people before technology. It's all about people and not about technology. It focuses always on creative, positive experiences. And in the end, it's a win-win situation, both for the users and the business. Because if your users are happy, probably your business is going to be happy as well. Okay, and what does a UX designer or researcher do? And in this case, what you can also do as a developer to make your product better at the experience and the ease and the satisfaction that it gives to your user. Before we answer that question, we will do a quick history lesson. It's going to be very quick, I promise. So we will talk about the father of UX, which is Don Norman. He is an engineer at Apple. At least he was first an engineer at Apple. His first major, I think it's in engineering, but then he continued in psychology. What he did and why he is the pioneer is that he actually observed how users interact with a product. It was the first time that someone observed how people are using machines. Because back then, of course, we had computers, but it was very simple and some stuff, not simple, but not very useful. We could still do stuff, obviously, but they were not so useful. That's why Don Norman started to observe how people are using them, so he could then improve them, of course, with his team. Don Norman also, if someone is interested, has a lot of books. You can share to them. This is one of the best ones, at least in my opinion, and he also have a website that you can check out as well. Okay, moving on to our original question, which was, what does a UXer do? And trust me, she does a lot of things. He's the one that brings everyone to the table. So he will speak with the users, but also the marketeers, the programmers, the engineers, I don't know, the stakeholders, everything. And he will ask a lot of questions. He will ask questions like, who are the users and what do they need? What are the main features the users need? What are their current behaviors? How will the product connect with them? And a lot more questions. And when he has answered to questions like this, he will continue to refine the results, to ask again if needed, and again, he's never alone. He always has people around him. Very quickly, we will go through some of the things that a UX designer has to know. And I have here a pyramid. We will start from the bottom to top. So there are things here as user research and analysis and content strategy, information architecture. And the other two levels, the top two levels, interaction design and visual design, are actually some things that the UI designer is probably going to handle. So yeah. Let's check them very quickly. We have a lot of things, again, here in the bottom stage, such as user interviews, user behavior studies, focus groups, and surveys. These are not the only things that the UXer will do. These are just part of their knowledge, and maybe they will more or less. So after he has results of these things, he will continue with creating user personas, user stories, and more things. Continuing, we will have the content strategy. And again, here he will maybe need the help of the marketeers, as you have to do things with microcopy and, with copying and emails and images and stuff like that. So probably he will need a lot of help in that stage. And continuing, we have the information architecture. Okay, I moved some slides. We have the information architecture, that this is the stage where everything is being connected, and it's a really important stage. But continuing, we have the top two layers, the interaction design and the visual design. I'm not going into the details for these two stages, as we are going to see them a little bit later. Okay, and I hope that by now you have at least understood what UX is, but we have a lot of things to say, so I will continue with UI. And we have like an official term right there, but we don't need that. We will say our own stuff. UI, and please hear me out, UI, it's not only visual. It's not only colors. It's not only buttons. It's not only images. There are a lot more stuff than colors and typographies, really. So I will try to persuade you on that it's not only colors and buttons. It can actually be audible as well. We have Siri, we have Alexa, you know those stuff. We can shout out to a small machine and the machine will give us answers. This is also UI. And from the other hand, it can also be textual. I'm pretty sure that you can understand that. Like we have a CLI, a command line, and we can write stuff down. This is one of the first forms of UI. It was something very simple. Maybe we have only black and white. Maybe you have simple typefaces. But this is also some part of the UI. And UI is, again, a lot more stuff. So why UI is important? I think, again, that you can pretty much realize why it is important. So I'm not going through details in that as well. But what does a UI designer do? So let's go again through the same pyramid. And this time, we will talk more about the top two layers. So we have the interaction design. And here, the designer focuses on the surface details, like, yes, button colors and typography, but also more things. He has to have a lot of knowledges. I have write down some of the stuff that the UI designer has to know, and these are things such as typography, color theory, iconography, and more things. Again, these are just some of the things, not all of them. Anyway, on the last stage, it's the visual design, and here the designer will focus on possible variations of a screen and how it will respond. And from the other hand, she has to apply design patterns effectively, create component libraries, establish complete design systems, and all these kind of things. And don't forget about making everything responsible and beautiful for everyone. And here we can say, like, them Samsung and Motorola, that they are always changing stuff, but okay. Let's move on. I hope that by now, again, you have realized what UX is, what UI is, how they are connected, but also what are the main differences. UI wouldn't be able to exist without UX. UX is a bigger part, and UI, either we want to or not, is just a small portion of it. So it's a bit weird when we hear people saying that, okay, I'm going to do this in the UI. No, because before you do the UI, you have to do all the UX. Okay, so let's move on to the second part, which is heuristics. What are heuristics, how we can use them, and again, how we can leverage them as developers. Heuristics, in a nutshell, is making decisions with information that we already have. And now, okay, let's move on here. What is a heuristic evaluation? We are going to talk about that because this will help us improve our product. Heuristic evaluation is a key part of designing a great product that users can easily engage with and find value in it. Its purpose is to detect usability issues and that may occur when a user interacts with our product. And of course, we have to find solutions to those problems. And we are going to talk about the solutions right after, because this is what we should do, like finding solutions. Okay, we have numerous heuristics. There is a big set of them. We will only focus on a small part, which is, as you can see in the third column, the heuristic analysis. We will focus on that because it's easier for us as developers to do it, or for the designers and the researchers to do it. And it's also only about 10 rules. This can be very complicated. We can have a lot more rules, but we will specifically talk about those 10 rules. Okay, let's see some steps also about how to conduct effectively the heuristic evaluation. And here, as again researchers, we have to ask a lot of questions, but this time maybe not only to the users, but to ourselves as well. And these questions are about why and what do I want to test? Who is this product for? Which usability principles should be followed? How will evaluators access and report a usability issue? And last but not least, but maybe it's like the most important thing, what do the findings show? So maybe we have done a great research, but there is no point on it if we can't have a report and finalizing some things. Okay, now let's go to the 10 rules. Okay, these 10 rules are coming from Don Norman and Jakob Nielson. They were manifested in 1995, and personally, I believe that everyone should follow these rules in order to make a better product. These examples are a little bit more towards to an app, but they can be followed everywhere for every product. Let's start with the first one, which is visibility of system status. Imagine, for example, your phone. Immediately when you take it out, you will see the time, you can see the date, you can see notifications, you can see an image, you can see everything. How would you feel if suddenly you couldn't see the Wi-Fi, you couldn't see the notifications, or you couldn't see the time? You would feel kind of naked, I don't know, something like that, right? That's how sometimes your users feel when they can't see the information that they want in your app. You really have to show them things. I don't mean to over-show them things, but show them the important things. And because it is your product, you know what is important and what isn't. So that was our first rule. Second rule is match between the system and the real world. This also has started a lot of years ago, is that sometimes when we want to show and present something new to an app or to a website, we will use the same design as it is in the real world. And that's why you can see in the examples that we maybe use a compass or a calculator because we want to help the user recognize what it is so she can use it faster and easier. Don't try to change a lot of things. The users know how to use specific apps, so when they are going to your app or to your product, they will have that mentality of the previous app or website or product that they used, and they will try to do the same things in your product. Don't change too many things. Then we have user control and freedom. Either we want it or not, our users will make mistakes. So we should definitely find a way to help them. And in these cases, we have like an emergency exit button, something simple like an undo, or are you sure you want to delete that? Or if we are talking about a website, just maybe a back button, something to help them. Continuing, we have the fourth rule, which is one of my favorite rules, and it's about consistency and standards. As I said, don't change too many things. Consistency has to do, for example, you have a delete button. Let it always be delete, not erase or not anything else. Don't change the words, keep it simple. And also, you have like an icon. For the delete action, again, use the same icon everywhere. Okay? I could talk about that a lot more, but I have a lot of things to say, so let's continue. We have error prevention, and again here, either we want to or not, mistakes will happen. Sometimes we think that we have the perfect product, but yeah, mistakes are going to happen. This time we have two categories here, slips and mistakes. When we are talking about slips, this is a bit easier. These are things that, as a user, I can go easily back and I can fix them easily, as a user. Now, as a user, if I can't understand how something works and I make mistakes because I don't understand something, that is an issue. And that's not an issue of a user, that's an issue of the designer or a programmer or I don't know what. We don't want the mistakes. So in order to fix that, we should go and step back and rethink our logic. Okay, moving on, we have recognition rather than recall. Again, 100% we want recognition. We want the user to see something and understand it. We don't want to make the user think about something. Recall here is, for example, when we put the user to think about numbers and dates and stuff like that. No, make them easily. And Coursera here is having like a nice example, so that's why I put it like that. You know, if you can have images to help your users, do that. If you can have like different colors to help your users, again, do that. Don't make them think. This is also, I think, a title of another book. Okay, flexibility and efficiency of use. This time, you will have in your product some users that are, let's say, more proficient, and some users that are just starting to use your product. You want to make it easy for both of these types of users and, of course, for everything else. For the first-time users, you want maybe a tutorial, maybe a guide, but of course, if somebody is more advanced, she will not need these kind of things. So maybe in this case, you will need, let's say, some integrations with, I don't know, third-party things, or maybe you want some hotkeys to make things faster. So provide those things as well. Think about the spectrum of your users. Think about everyone, actually. Now, aesthetic and minimal design. This is the other thing that I love for these rules. Don't overclutter your product. Especially, I have seen that with the beginners a lot of times. Yes, as we said, like in the first rule, put things out there, but don't over-put things out there. Don't make your product with too many colors or with too many buttons. Give them only the stuff that they really need. And some practical advice here is don't Don't use too many colors. Unless you are a professional in that, then stick to 2, 3 colors. And there are also many websites that they can help you pick up the correct colors. And the other thing is use white space. I will say it again, use white space. Don't have everything squeezed up, you know. Okay, 9, help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. We have seen that a lot of times. I mean, the example, we have seen that a lot of times. Let the users know what is the problem and how they can fix that easily. Are they trying to upload an image and in our system we can't take this kind of image? Let them know what we can take. Are they going to attach something in an email? Let them know that, oops, maybe they forgot to attach that thing. Last but not least, we have help and documentation. And yes, we want to have like a beautiful product and easy and with satisfaction and all this kind of stuff. But again, maybe we have different kind of users or users that are not very familiar with the technology. So do have a tutorial, maybe a guide that, yeah, the people can use it again easily. And Slack does a good job there. Discord does a good job there, that they have like just some small prompts that you can easily move on. Okay, these were the 10 usability heuristics. Very quickly, I will go through the fourth part, which is the do's and don'ts of UX. These are going to be very, very small tips. I maybe talk a little bit fast because I see that I don't have a lot of time, but I do have a lot of things to say, so excuse me for that. And let's start. Practical tips about UX. Don't assume you know what your users want. Never, like, don't do that. You are not the user of your product as well, because you know too good your product, so you can't be the user of it. Find other people. Don't follow the hippo at the room, and this stands for highest paid person's opinion. Don't do that, really. Again, don't do that. Do make the time and effort for user research, and don't just create a list of methods to check off. Do understand all research options and the strengths of it. Don't prototype too soon. And do conduct scoping research, not just evaluative. Do focus on what people do rather what they say. Again, this is very, very important. Focus on how they use your product. Check their face, check their moves, check how they hold it. And if you can only do one thing, do contact user testing. Don't overlook existing insight from customer care representatives. You can find a lot of valuable information. And do collaborate. A UX person or a UI person is never alone. So do find someone qualified to do your research or be one yourself. And I hope that with this presentation and, of course, with other tutorials, it will be a bit easier for you. And now I see that we don't have a lot of time. I had quite a few more things to say, but I will completely skip them. It was about designing. So yes, pretty much that's it. I will be somewhere here if anyone has questions. Thank you very much, anyone, for listening to me. And yeah, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there we are.